Hey, we're back again with Daily Fantasy Knockout. Today we're talking about UFC 197, Jones versus St. Preux. My name is Diener with my co-host, Josh Stonewall Stillman. Josh, what's going on, dude?
It's good, Diener. Good to be back in the mix here.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped. This is a big card. Last weekend was fun, but pay-per-view fights are always good. So I'm excited to see my boy Johnny Bones back in the octagon. What you have to say about that?
I think I have to say that you're the worst. He's the worst. Anyone who likes them is the worst. You're just terrible people, and fuck out of here with that.
All right, fair enough. You guys know how the show works. We're going to break down each fight and how it relates to DraftKings and what we think the best plays are for DraftKings at their price point and the Vegas odds. So let's dive right into it. First fight of the evening on UFC Fight Pass, early prelims, Efren Escudero and Kevin Lee.
Oh, dang, man. I had my head all ready to do Jones OSP. Forgot we were going in reverse order. Need to get my life together. Sorry. Okay. So I'm taking this one?
Yep.
Here we go. Okay, so Escudero's got, he's been around the block like a million times. In and out of the UFC a few times. He won Season 8 of The Ultimate Fighter, but has been 500-ish or a little bit under in 2 or 3 stints. Even in his latest stint, I think he's 2-2. So he's a solid, mid to lower tier UFC lightweight. He generally does pretty well outside the UFC, gets brought back in, and then goes 500 and then gets kicked out again. So I think his problem is that he doesn't have one overwhelming skill set. He's well-rounded. He's good everywhere. He's only 30 despite having a pretty long career at this point, and he's been pretty durable. He doesn't have any knockout losses at this point. I think he's been submitted twice and has lost 6 decisions or something like that. So he's durable. He's tough to put away. He's got good boxing, pretty good head movement. I think he sometimes gets tired and can end up getting tagged too much. He has awkward sort of head movement. But when he doesn't have his hands up, which is pretty often, he can still get tagged a little bit. But his boxing is generally pretty solid. He's got good output. When he's on, he can really slip well and dodge punches and put hands on people. He's got pretty reliable wrestling to kind of fall back on with his junior college All-American wrestling pedigree to kind of fall back on. But he isn't anything super special on the ground in terms of ground and pound. He kind of makes up for lack of explosiveness and power with just kind of output everywhere. In the clinch, on the ground, on the feet, he's active, while not being especially dangerous in any kind of one area. He's taking on big-time prospect Kevin Lee, who's only 23, which is very surprising considering he's already had, I think, 6 UFC fights, and he's 4-2. He's coming off a really disappointing loss against Leandro Silva, I believe. I think Escudero has fought a guy named Leandro Silva and then Leonardo Santos or something like that. How the heck I'm supposed to keep these people straight? I don't know. But anyway, Lee was coming off this loss to basically a very, very high-level jiu-jitsu guy who ended up knocking him out in the first round on the feet. So it was very disappointing. He was a big favorite, this hot prospect, and so he had a bunch of the shine taken off him. It was the first time he was stopped in his career. He's 11-2. So it'll be interesting to see how a young guy like that bounces back from that type of setback. But he is the superior athlete and the superior wrestler, probably. He's, I think, a former Division II wrestler. He's freaking very explosive, while Escudero kind of looks a little bit pudgy around the midsection, and definitely does not have the same explosiveness. So let me check out the odds to finish here. Lee is a big favorite. He's more than a 4-1 favorite. Go ahead.
Kevin Lee's -400. Escudero comes in at +300. Looking at it on a DraftKings pricing, Escudero is 9,100 and Kevin Lee is 10,300.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I think personally, I think the line is a little bit off there. I don't think that Escudero should be such a massive underdog, given how durable he is and given how well-rounded he is. It's not like he's got, like I said, it's not like he's got glaring holes in his game. If anything, he'll be on. He could get like stifled, but he's got pretty solid submission defense since being submitted earlier in his UFC career by like guys like Evan Dunham. He has shorn that up. When he was fighting that same kind of jiu-jitsu guy, he had his back taken a couple of times and was able to kind of fend off submissions. So I don't expect him to get finished here. It's minus 185 to go over 2.5 rounds. So it's favored to go the distance, not like overwhelmingly, but let me see, what did you say? Lee's price is 10,300. I don't love Lee because he's not super high output. I think his method of victory comes through wrestling here more than through striking. But I guess I say he's not super high output, but he's got a greater sniff and strike stat than Escudero does. So maybe I'm off on that. But I think I kind of prefer Escudero here for his price and for his output.
Okay, cash game or GPP play?
Cash game. I don't think either of these finish. Again, that's some salary relief.
Okay. All right, sounds good. We're going to move on to our next fight. Marcos Rogerio de Lima versus Clint Hester. And I'm going to dive into this one a little bit. Looking at de Lima, he comes into the UFC at 13-3, and he's 2-1 in the UFC. Most recently, he got subbed by Nikita Krylov. That was back in August. Prior to that fight, he TKO'd Igor Prokrajic and Richardson Moreira. He was a contestant on the Ultimate Fighter 3 Brazil, where he lost to your boy, Antonio Carlos Jr. in the semifinals via rear naked choke.
He's dead to me.
There's limited footage on this guy, but he has super heavy hands, and from the opening bell, he's going to go for broke. The key for him to win this fight is he wants to strike. He's got heavy hands. He wants to look to close the distance and pretty much bang it out with his opponents until his opponent drops. This worked really well against Prokrajic, but he tried this style with Krylov, and he got choked unconscious, and it was a pretty good fight. In order to beat de Lima, though, all you need to do, in my opinion, is to get this guy to the ground, take away his striking ability, and he's kind of rendered useless. Looking at Clint, headbust Hester. This guy, his output's okay. He averages 3.58 significant strikes. I always thought he has good wrestling technique. He only averages 1 takedown per fight. He comes into the UFC at 11-5. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. I mean, this fight, I don't know. I don't know too much about this fight. I mean, looking at Vegas, pretty much a coin flip. They have Clint Hester at plus 105 and de Lima at minus 135. It's also a coin flip to go over or under 1.5 rounds. Looking at DraftKings, they have Clint Hester at 9,400 and Rogerio de Lima at 10,000. Me personally, I'm going to have some exposure to de Lima for 10,000. I really think he can finish Hester. In Hester's previous 2 fights, he was TKO'd on the feet. So for 10 grand, I think that's a safe bet. I like de Lima in this fight. I'm not sure if you have anything else to add. It's just a quick overview of this fight. I think it's de Lima on this one.
Yeah. So you said you think the path to victory against de Lima is to get him to the ground.
Correct.
And I was sort of thinking the same thing in Hester's last fight against Vitor Miranda. Like, Miranda has terrible takedown defense, and so Hester has shown in the past like an ability to wrestle somewhat. Not that he's the best wrestler in the world, but he could not execute that game plan against a dangerous striker in Miranda, who clearly had porous takedown defense. So I have a hard time trusting Hester to be able to wrestle somebody, and he's moving up a weight class. He's going up to light heavyweight. I don't know. Maybe he'll have a speed advantage, but yeah, I'm with you. I think I kind of prefer De Lima, but with such a high probability of finish according to Vegas, we probably want to have some exposure to both sides, since the fight is pretty close.
All right, let's move on to the last fight on the UFC Fight Pass early prelims. Walt Harris versus Cody East. If any of you watch, what is it, Looking for a Fight?
Yeah.
Dana White, Cody East is one of the guys they found on there. Vegas has this fight. Walt Harris comes in as the underdog at plus 130. Cody East is minus 160. This is favored to end under 1.5 rounds. And according to DraftKings, Cody East comes in at 9,600 and Walt Harris comes in at 9,800. I think there's a lot of value there before we even get into the analysis. Vegas has this favored to go Cody East in his favor, and he's priced less than Harris. That's kind of a discrepancy there. So, yeah, I'll let you ride with this one. What do you got?
Well, first of all, before I get into my analysis, did you? I haven't seen the episode with him on. Drew, are you there?
Yep, you there? Sorry, man, I lost you too.
Okay, sorry. Did you see the episode of Looking for a Fight that Cody East was on?
I did not, actually. I've seen most all episodes, but I don't think I've seen that one. I think I watch it. I tend to watch these fights at work. You can tell how busy I am, these videos. And my boss probably came around the corner and I exited out, but I did not. I have not seen it. I'm not going to lie.
Smooth, dude. Okay.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. Okay, then I'll just jump right in. I haven't watched it either. But anyway, I did catch a few of his fights on YouTube, so got something to talk about here. So Harris has been in the UFC for a little bit. I think he's 0-3 in the UFC. He lost his first 2 fights, bounced out of the UFC, won a fight, came back, lost that one again, and so he's getting his 4th shot to get a victory finally here. So Harris is a pretty big guy. He doesn't like cut down to the like 265 limit or anything. He's like about 240 or so. He's relatively light on his feet, pretty solid athlete. I think he's a former college basketball player. So for heavyweight standards, he's a pretty decent athlete. He's a southpaw boxer, of boxing, but not really great lateral footwork. So he tends to get backed into the cage a little bit too easily, though he did look better in that regard against Soa Palele until he ended up like getting taken down and pounded out. He was doing a better job of like having a sense of urgency and staying away from the cage. He throws occasional head kicks and leg kicks. So he throws hard, but he's got some defensive liabilities on the feet. He sometimes doesn't really move his head off the center line when he's throwing, so he's there to get countered. In terms of wrestling, he uses it mostly in his UFC fights that I've seen. He uses it mostly defensively. He fought Jared Roshaw, who's the standard heavyweight wrestler, and Roshaw only went 1 for 2 on takedown attempts against him. So he was doing a good job of like staying out of that wheelhouse, but then he ended up getting outboxed by Roshaw, which is like super random. So this guy is probably a guy who could do well on the regional scene as a heavyweight because the talent pool at heavyweight isn't is pretty thin, and he's a plus athlete with decent boxing, but he's 0-3 in the UFC for a reason. So he's taking on East, who doesn't look like a world beater. He has a few advantages against Harris. He's probably has superior cardio. In Harris's fight against Palele, he got taken down and didn't have like anything to offer. Once he was down, he got mounted like right away with like no resistance and pounded out. Even though the round was like coming to an end, he couldn't summon the will to like buck and move enough to see the end of the round. Maybe because Palele hits like a truck, which he definitely does, but play like he was super tired himself. So Harris doesn't have great cardio. East has better cardio, a lot more volume on the feet, and he's also there to be countered. But he has a solid chin himself. In terms of grappling, neither of these guys, I haven't seen like much from the grappling aspect from them. East, he's got okay takedown defense, but he uses his athleticism more than any kind of like technique. He's just kind of looking to explode up. On the ground, he's active from his back with strikes and looks to push off and stand back up. Harris, when I've seen him taken down, he just doesn't really offer a whole lot. So East has that advantage. If Harris was more inclined to wrestle and like get his bigger body on top of East and kind of make him carry his weight, wear on him, beat him up a little bit, I'd be more inclined to kind of go with him. But he hasn't really shown that he's got that inclination. So East throws more volume and has better cardio. So I expect him to gradually take over and get the stoppage in the second or third round of his UFC debut.
All right, let's just take a look at Vegas. They have Harris as the +130 underdog. East is -160 as the favorite. It is favored to ender under a round and a half. DraftKings has Cody East. I think I went over this. Yeah, Cody East is 9,600 and Walt Harris is 9,800. So you think East is the play?
Yeah, I mean, you want exposure, some exposure to both sides, obviously, but I definitely favor East. He's cheaper for some reason. He's got the higher output in case it turns into one of those awful, like lower level heavyweight fights that ends up going the distance. He's going to, pick up enough points. He's going to rack up enough points on the feet to get you a decision, most likely. But yeah, like I said, I like him to get the stoppage in like the second or third round. So I definitely like East.
All right, moving on to our first fight of the prelims, Glyco Franco versus James Vick. Franco comes in at 13-3. He's currently 1-0 in the UFC. He's a big lightweight. He's real tall and lanky. He was the winner of the Ultimate Fighter 4 Brazil tournament. This guy's, like I said, he's real long. He's got a long reach. He uses his legs and his length to his advantage. He's an excellent striker. I only watched a few of his fights, but he exhibited real solid takedown defense. He wasn't very easy to take down, and he likes to use his size and his reach to wear down his opponents, and especially up against the cage. The length of his arms and his legs allows him to impose really strong leverage against his opponents. And like Joe Rogan always says, when someone is up against the cage and getting grinded down and stuff like that, it looks boring, but it's really tiresome on a fighter. So Franco uses that to his advantage. Looking at James Vick, he's 8-0. We were talking off the air. The UFC kind of describes him, well, the public kind of describes him as a prospect killer. The UFC keeps feeding these up-and-coming prospects to him, and he just keeps knocking them down and running through them. Most recently, my boy Jake Matthews and him went at it, and Jake Matthews got subbed in the first round. And looking at his fight record, he seems to have a knack for the guillotine submission. Looking at Vegas odds, Vick actually comes in at a -190 favorite, which is surprising, and Franco comes in at +155. If we're looking at DraftKings, James Vick is 10,900 and Franco is 8,500. Vegas, wow. Yeah, right. It's pretty surprising, in my opinion. Vegas likes Vick in this fight, but they favor it to go over. And the way I look at it, I think with Franco's length and his size, I do see this going to a decision. But I'm going to side with Vick on this fight. I mean, he's 8-0. He's knocked everybody down that's put in his way. When does he get that prospect designation? So I'm going to go with Vick in this one. I don't know if I'll have much exposure to him whatsoever. For 10,900, I fully expect a finish, and I just don't see that happening. Franco is long enough and solid enough on the ground and on the feet where I just don't think Vick's going to sink in that guillotine or knock him out. So quick analysis here, but we're going to go with Vick on this one. I don't know how much exposure we're going to have to him. Like I said, he's 10,900. I expect to finish, and quite frankly, I just don't see that happening. I think it is going to end up going to a decision.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. Carla Esparza versus Juliana Lima. Let's take a look at Vegas. Vegas has Lima as the plus 155 underdog and Esparza at minus 190. On DraftKings, Lima is 9,200 and Esparza is 10,200.
Okay. So I like Esparza in this one. She's been out for a while, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how she comes back. She's coming off the beatdown at the hands of Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She was the former strawweight champion, the first UFC strawweight champion, winning the that season the Ultimate Fighter, beating Rose Namajunas. That win, in retrospect, looks pretty damn good because Rose has been on a tear since then. But she got absolutely wiped out by Jędrzejczyk, and so she's been out for over a year or so. I think she had a shoulder injury, but she was also kind of taking time off. I'm hoping that she's shorn up her hands enough to make them kind of a threat, both offensively and defensively, because her wrestling is very, very good. She's probably the best wrestler in the division. She's very diverse with her takedowns. She can catch kicks and turn them into takedowns. She's got really good reactive takedowns and sets up her takedowns well with her hands. She's got a powerful double leg, so she's just a very, very good wrestler. I've been hearing Ian McCall on a lot of podcasts lately talking her up. I tend to kind of try to ignore coach speak. So, as they say, everyone's going to always kind of talk up their fighter, so you kind of got to tune that out. But for what that's worth, so interesting from the layoff and from the beating she took from Esparza. So she takes on Lima, who's 2-1 in the UFC. Lima took on Jędrzejczyk herself. It was just a 3-round fight. I think it was Jędrzejczyk's first UFC fight, and it went the distance. But Jędrzejczyk beat her up too. Lima's a Muay Thai practitioner, but she sometimes has the bad habit of really trying to push for takedowns, and she just doesn't have that kind of pedigree. And she's a pretty big, strong strawweight. So, like you were mentioning about Joe Rogan's, one of his famous sayings, you guys themselves out against the fence. She definitely does that. While she's looking for a takedown, she definitely wears herself out a good bit. So I expect Esparza to have the cardio advantage. I think Lima obviously will probably have the striking advantage as the Muay Thai person. She's got a dangerous Thai clinch and hard leg kicks, but she doesn't throw nearly the output that Jędrzejczyk does, and she tends to tire out. So I think that Esparza is going to have the advantage in terms of grappling and cardio, and is going to push the pace down the stretch to take a decision. In terms of DraftKings, with Esparza coming in at 10,200, you're kind of looking for a finish there, and you like that. I think she's a pretty safe, relatively safe bet, but this fight is minus 250 to go over 2.5 rounds, so it's very likely that it goes the distance, and so I probably won't have a ton of exposure to it. Lima being as low output as she is, and the fact that she's going to be kind of fighting off her back, in cash games sometimes you don't mind taking the underdog who's like really cheap in a fight that's supposed to go the distance, because whatever the points they can pick up, and if they steal a decision, then great, you're golden. But they'll be around the whole time to kind of pick up points. But if she's going to be fighting off her back the whole time, she's not going to really be able to give you much in the way of points at all. So I'm probably going to be kind of staying away from this fight a little bit, maybe have a little bit of exposure to Esparza in case she comes out with an awesome and like subs Lima right off. Yeah.
I think you froze up on me there.
What do we got next?
All right, next up we got Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts versus nonstop action-packed Dominic Steele. I'm going to start with Roberts. Roberts, he's a 28-year-old welterweight fighter. He has a record of 11 wins with 1 loss. I'm sorry, 12 wins and 1 loss. He kind of made his name on OMMAC. It's in Liverpool before he signed with Cage Warriors. And then when he signed with Cage Warriors, he just stormed through this welterweight division, and the UFC finally caught wind of him and brought him over. In his 12 career wins, he has 5 knockouts, but he's very well-rounded on the ground. He spent some time at Liverpool's Next Generation MMA. And going along with those 12 victories, he also has 4 submissions. He's primarily a stand-up fighter. He has a background in boxing. He's lightning quick. He likes to use his athletic ability. He mixes in leg kicks to the body and head, and combos that with his excellent boxing skills, his pinpoint accuracy. In his first UFC fight, he submitted Nathan Coy in under 3 minutes. A little bit more about him. He's a southpaw fighter. He's super, super strong. His head movement is elite. He seems like real hard to hit. He prefers to strike, and opponents want to take him to the ground, but for some reason, I don't know why, he's really comfortable on the ground. I noticed that he's a really good wrestler, and his counter wrestling is actually probably one of his better attributes. And I'm sorry, I got distracted there. His jiu-jitsu is average. It's not bad. I mean, his jiu-jitsu level is good enough where he can hold his own. Moving on to Steele, he's 14-6 in his pro MMA career. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Most recently, he knocked out excuse me, Dong Hyun Kim. No, not the one you're thinking of. Same name, younger guy. He knocked him out via slam. It was pretty awesome. And before that, he got TKO'd by Zach Cummings. This dude's a beast. He's a huge welterweight. Most of his fights, when he weighs in for welterweight, when he steps into the cage, Joe Rogan says he's probably around 190, 195 after he puts all that weight back on. He used to fight at middleweight, so it's a big cut for him, but he's a huge welterweight. When he was fighting Cummings, he actually got completely outpointed on the feet. He had a huge straight left hand, and he was peppered along the fence, so there's not much analysis to go on with that. What he does bring to the cage, he has huge powers in his hands. His first fight against Dong Hyun Kim, he dropped him. He does really well in the clinch. He uses his size to his advantage, as he should. He's a really big welterweight. True welterweights who actually belong in that division are going to have a really tough time dealing with the strength of Steele if he's leaning up against them on the cage or on top of him. That being said, he likes to throw heavy hands, but I personally don't think he's that polished on the feet. His left hook is probably his best punch, but he's a little sloppy. He's kind of raw. But if he is to get his opponent up against the fence, where I think he wins this fight, his aggressive elbows are unbelievable. His dirty boxing is awesome. He worked over Dong Hyun Kim across the cage with dirty elbows, dirty boxing, and he actually shot for a takedown. And he was on top of Dong Hyun Kim, and his size and strength was a little bit too much for him. But like I said, he's a fairly one-dimensional fighter. And when I watch him, he kind of looks like a raw version of Rampage. He wants to stand in there and bang and, may the best man win. He's got huge power. He's kind of wild with his striking. Some of the issues I had with him, he's kind of wild with his striking. He drops his hands sometimes, and he's hesitant to shoot for takedowns. And for some reason, he eats a lot of body kicks. I don't know why. I don't know how he's going to defend that, but he ate a lot of body kicks in the fights that I saw. Vegas has this fight. Danny Roberts is a -375 favorite, and Dominic Steele is +275. DraftKings has it. Danny Roberts is 10,400, and Dominic is 9,000. I was kind of torn on this fight when I watched it, but I'm going with Roberts in this one via TKO in the second round. I think his speed, his elusiveness is going to win him this fight. Steele's got huge power, and if he catches Roberts, I think Roberts is going to sleep. But I'm going to lean Roberts on this one in the majority of my cash game plays and GPPs. But if you're looking for some salary relief, Everybody's got a puncher's chance, and Steele's tough as nails, man. The guy's huge. If you get hit with that fist, you're probably going to sleep. So if you want to throw Steele in some GPPs, I'm all for it.
So you think Roberts is an okay cash play?
Yeah, I think he is.
Okay. So maybe we'll hear more about this fight at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, I might have something for you guys. Might have something.
Right.
You never know. Stay
Good
tuned.
stuff. All right, so I got you next.
What?
I got you next with the flyweights. You got Sergio Pettis and Chris Kalides. Hope I'm saying that right.
Tables have turned.
Yeah, with the intros.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my hand at this one. So we got the younger Pettis coming in on DraftKings. He's 10,100, and his Canadian counterpart is 9,300 on DraftKings. Vegas has this as Kalides coming in at a plus 200 underdog and Pettis 240 favorite, and the fight is favored to go over 2.5 rounds at minus 240. So favored to go the distance. Just looking at that stat right there, anytime that the fight is going to go the distance, I think Pettis is at a big time advantage. He's a little bit more, let me see here. He's a little bit more, I don't know, measured, I guess I would say, than his older brother. He kind of has like a more consistent output, uses his excellent kickboxing more consistently throughout like the whole fight, while Pettis is sort of looking for that, doesn't have the same kind of output, is looking for that knockout blow, and kind of like tends to sit back too much, and that's why he can kind of tend to lose decisions like he did in his last fight against Eddie Alvarez. He's the bigger hitter, he's got the better overall striking game, but tends to sit back and look for that one knockout blow, and when it doesn't come, he can sometimes get outpointed. Sergio definitely does not have that problem. If anything, his problem comes when he can kind of get too comfortable throwing hands or mixing it up on the mat. His 2 losses have been that's sort of been the issue, is that he got dropped against Caceres at one point when he kind of fell into a rhythm of slipping Caceres' first punch and throwing back a combo, and Caceres came back with like a multi-punch, like threw one punch for Pettis to slip, and then threw another one as Pettis was kind of coming forward to throw his combination, and Caceres caught him and dropped him. And then, but later in the fight, he got taken down and was like looking for a heel hook or something like that, and got his back taken and got choked out pretty quickly. So he just kind of tends to get a little bit too comfortable mixing it up. But he's super young, only 22 or something like that. Might not even be that old. Very, very young kid to be as experienced as he is in the UFC. I think he's like 4-2 in the UFC, and yeah, he's only 22 years old. So, as you'd expect from a Pettis, he's got excellent kickboxing all the way around. It can be occasionally flashy, like his older brother, but he's, like I said, more consistent. Throws lots of combos, throws lots of head kicks, slips a punch and fires back a combination. His on the ground, when he does get taken down, he's got a really good sweep, but he might be getting a little bit too predictable with it. I'm wondering, Kalides, his strength is his grappling. So it'll be interesting to see if, I'm not sure what it's called, but basically you kind of hold on to the dude's ankle while he's standing above you and push off, and that like knocks the dude down, and then you can jump on top or get back up to your feet. Sergio has done that in a lot of his fights that I've seen. That's like his go-to sweep. So we'll see if he can kind of hold his own on the ground, but he's got pretty good takedown defense overall, and that's what he's going to need against Kalides. He's going to try to drag this to the mat and make it like a big scramble fest and try to catch Pettis in a submission. But I think Pettis is improving enough from fight to fight. Kalides doesn't have reliable enough wrestling. Pettis is dropping down from bantamweight, so he shouldn't have too big of an issue with the strength of Kalides when he gets his hands on him. So I like I like Pettis to take this one by decision. He might earn the knockout, but Cledis is pretty dang tough. So I think Sergio just kind of racks up points as the rounds go by, survives a few scary moments on the mat, and picks up a decision.
Did you go over DraftKings pricings on them? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mentioned it at the beginning. Let me just talk about that real quick. So with Pettis being a pretty sizable favorite, he only comes in at $10,100 on DraftKings, and he's minus 240 favorite, and he's gonna give you I like him a good bit, especially I think in cash games. He's relatively safe, relatively cheap, and is going to give you a lot of output. So I think he makes a pretty good cash option with the fight not being favored to finish. You don't love him in GPPs, but he definitely has that. So he's not the worst GPP play. Again, being relatively inexpensive. In terms of Caladius, I don't think that I'll be on him too much. I see his path to victory being like trying to make this a grappling fest, and so that's not high upside.
All right, that sounds good. That wraps up our FS1 prelims. We're going to go to the first fight on the main card, and it's Yair Rodriguez versus Andre Fili. I'm going to take this one. Feel free to jump in. Yair Rodriguez, he's 3-0 in his UFC career. All 3 victories come by decision. He is the winner of the Ultimate Fighter Latin America, where he competed on Cain Velasquez's team. He's an orthodox fighter who loves to switch up his techniques. He's a black belt in Taekwondo. This guy throws wild strikes. He stands with this sideways stance, and it makes it difficult for opponents to have an idea of really what's coming. He does a really good job of hiding his strikes and not telegraphing them, as Joe Rogan always says. He strikes from this position because he's really, really good off his back with his BJJ, and he's really not afraid to be taken down. So he uses that towards his advantage. Early on in his fight with Charles Rosa, he was throwing some awesome flying knees, wheel kicks, switch kicks, just throwing the whole gamut. I mean, this guy's exciting. He's really fun to watch. His movement in the octagon is super fluid. It's fun to watch. Joe Rogan even called him, and I quote, a combination of Anthony Pettis and John Jones. He's got great leverage in his legs, and like I said, he's a real creative fighter with a high diversity of attacks and movements and quick twitch movements. He gets kicks off at lightning speed from anywhere in any position. Looking at his wrestling, he doesn't really mind being on the ground. Against Charles Rosa, he did an awesome job, and Rosa is a ground specialist. When he's on his back, he shows great composure. He doesn't get nervous. In terms of takedown defense, like I said, he uses stance switches quite a bit and a lot of side-to-side movement to defend takedowns. His defensive guard is beautiful. All he does is move and move and move. He never sits around. And he likes to throw punches from the ground as well. And he uses his jiu-jitsu. He's real explosive and dynamic with that jiu-jitsu from the ground, looking for submissions and looking to end the fight. Moving on to Fili, he comes in to the UFC at 15-3 in his pro MMA career. Most recently, he had a performance of the night victory over Gabriel Benitez on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America finale. He's been alternating wins and losses since entering the UFC in 2013. He was defeated by Max Holloway at UFC 172. Nothing to hang your head on. Max Holloway is elite. And
there's another fight that we attended.
That's right. And he also lost to Godfredo Papaya via submission. It was a flying triangle. It was pretty cool. Anyway, this guy, he loves to starts his fight quickly. He takes the center of the octagon as soon as he can. He has this offense-first mentality. As a featherweight, he's really tall. He's 5'11". He's long and lean. He uses his length to strike at range. He's super aggressive on his feet. But with that, he does leave himself open to counter punches. He tends to use these knees whenever he gets a chance. A lot of times his fight, if he gets the fight up against the cage, he uses powerful knees. They're dangerous knees, though, because a couple of times he threw them and his opponents were up against the cage on the ground, and he landed them perfectly into the chest. Had they hit the head, though, it would have been an immediate point deduction. He's a high-volume fighter. He loves to dictate the fight, the pace of the fight. He works this straight jab and follows them up with aggressive leg kicks. He's not the strongest on the ground. He's uncomfortable on his back. He was on his back against Arantes, and he got smoked. He got beat up on his back. On the other hand, he does have great timing when he's shooting for takedowns. So if someone's striking with him, he times it perfectly for the takedown. His top game is so-so. His main weapon, if he is on top, is he throws these aggressive elbows. He does a good job of using his length to maintain top control. Looking at this fight, the pick, before this, I didn't really know much about Rodriguez, but I really, really like him in this fight. I think he's going to unleash wicked kicks, strikes. Philly's definitely game. He's not a bad fighter by any means, but I see Yair Rodriguez as being the superior fighter. If Philly were to win this fight, he's going to have to close the distance on Rodriguez and grind him up on the cage and take him to the ground. But I don't really see him being able to do that, as I give the clinch and the ground game edge to Rodriguez. So I'm going to take Rodriguez via decision in this fight. Vegas has this fight. Yair Rodriguez is -160 favorite. Andre Philly is +130. It is favored to go the distance at -220. And looking at DraftKings, Andre Philly comes in at 8,900 and Rodriguez comes in at 10,500. 10,500. I expect to finish for that. I think he wins this fight pretty easily. So this might be a cash game play because it's a guaranteed points for us. But I'm not too sure how much exposure I'll have to this. I'm probably not going to touch Philly. I really think Rodriguez is on the cusp of being great.
Yeah, interesting. I'm really looking forward to this fight for sure. I can't wait to see how it plays out. Rodriguez has been doing really well in his UFC career, and I'm really looking forward to see against Fili. He's stepping up every time he comes out and keeps getting W's. So, and Fili's an all-action guy, so I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm not sure how to play it, but I'll defer to you on this one.
Yeah, so
we got Nick.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I like Rodriguez in that fight. We all good there? You ready to move on?
Yeah, I got it.
All right, player, it's all you. Don't screw it up.
All right. So we got our next one: Robert Whittaker and Rafael Natal at middleweight. Whittaker comes in in terms of Vegas odds. Whittaker is -325 and Natal is +265 underdog. And in terms of finishing the fight, is pretty much a coin flip to go over 2.5 rounds. It's +100 to go over 2.5 rounds. So basically a coin flip to finish at this point. So I'm all super exciting. I make fun of the middleweight division a lot because it's very, very, very middleweight. I love that joke. A lot of middleweights either have like glaring holes in their game, or not well rounded, or not very athletic. It's just kind of like that big plotting division. Not everybody, obviously. Of course, I mean, we've got a great champion, got a great title fight coming up. Super pumped for that. But most of the division is anemic by the standards of, like welterweight or lightweight, obviously. But Whittaker and Natal are both very, very exciting guys. Looking forward to seeing them mix it up. But I think Whittaker has got too much for Natal in this one. Whittaker's striking is very, very good. He's a karate black belt, but he uses his hands a lot more than other guys who are known for their karate. I mean, he relies mostly on his boxing. The guys like Stephen Thompson, obviously but they throw a lot of like crazy kicks, or Machida has like that really elusive style, and that's not really Whittaker's style at all. He doesn't really have the same kind of style as those other karate guys. He definitely uses his hands a lot, but he's just a joy to watch on the feet. I mean, he's super diverse, mixes up his attacks, mixes up his angles, moving his head. He throws different combinations all the time. He's always throwing in combination. He's very active. He throws lots of kicks to kind of mix things up. He's mixing those in more and more lately. And he throws all kinds of different stuff: body kicks, leg kicks, front kicks up the middle, head kicks. He doesn't jab a whole lot for a really good striker. He sort of will start his combos with a hook, a left hook, or a straight right just as often. But against Hester, who's further down the undercard here, they fought, and Hester's a talented former pro boxer, and Whitaker just whooped his ass, like pillar to post, knocked him down a couple times, rocked him a few times, just whooped up on him. I haven't seen a whole lot of his grappling, but he has very good takedown defense, as his 92% takedown defense rate suggests. He's a purple belt in BJJ, but he's definitely not the most ground game is not his forte. He got mount on Hester at one point after dropping him, but Hester was able to bridge off the fence and roll over into guard like right away. Granted, I think that was a couple of fights ago, and Whitaker is only 25, I think. So he's got that prospect label. He's not one of these old dudes fighting at middleweight. So he's an up and comer. Very, very excited to see him fight. He's taking on Natal, who I think both these guys are riding 3 or 4 fight win streaks. Bad, especially by the middleweight division standard. He's well-rounded. He's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's developed his hands that they're a potent weapon. Obviously, he's not going to be as crisp as Whitaker, but they are dangerous nonetheless. His wrestling, while he's not super consistent, he can be tenacious. When he decides he wants to go for the takedown, he'll just pursue it. I think he averages over 2 takedowns per round, or I should say per fight, per 15 minutes. So he gets after it, but I think he's going to have a hard time with Whitaker in this fight. Whitaker's takedown defense, I think, is going to kind of negate Natal's grappling advantage, and Whitaker's feet, the longer it stays on the feet, the worse Natal's going to have for it. Whitaker just beat Uriah Hall, who's can be inconsistent, but is also a very good striker, and Whitaker kind of took over that fight. So I think Whitaker smashes in this one. He gets the finish within the first 7 or 8 minutes.
Did you go over DraftKings?
Yeah, I touched on the prices. Let me jump back to that real quick. So Whitaker is 10,700, and I think he's worth it. I think he gets the finish. By Hall in his last fight, he was actually scheduled to fight Michael Bisping. So that's the kind of trajectory that they kind of envisioned for him. I guess they're pairing him with Natal because they're both on like 3 or 4 fight win streaks. And Bisping, I would imagine, probably wants no part of Whitaker. Whitaker doesn't have the name that Bisping wants at this point to like take on the risk of fighting somebody this good. So I wouldn't blame Bisping for not wanting this fight. He wants big names, big fights, and Whitaker probably doesn't have that same name value, but he's got every bit of that skill. He's very dangerous. So I like, even though he's 10-7, I like Whitaker. I play him in cash or in GPPs with no trepidation. Give me Whitaker all day.
All right, you seem pretty confident with that one. All right, let's move on. Anthony Showtime Pettis versus Edson Barbosa. I just want to tell you guys how excited I am for this fight. I'm probably looking forward to this one.
This fight is going to be a barn burner. This is not going to be the trap Pettis against the fence for 3 rounds and pray you don't get knocked out or submitted. This is going to be
2 guys out there
going mad kid.
All right, let's start with Pettis. Pettis is 18-4 in his pro career. He's coming off 2 consecutive decision losses to Eddie Alvarez and the current champ, Rafael dos Anjos. In his 8 UFC fights, he's finished 4 of them, with the most memorable UFC finish being a head kick to Joe Lozon.
Ouch, dude. That's just uncalled for.
Stillman's a mark for Joe Lozon, if anybody doesn't know that.
Longtime listeners will have heard the story.
That's right.
But anyway.
Check it out on YouTube. Anyway, Pettis, he's a southpaw, unorthodox. He's a very versatile striker. He works body kicks out of the southpaw stance with his left leg, and he throws them with mean power. He likes to strike from range, kicks to the body, highlight reel, wheel kicks. We've all seen the highlight reel kick against Benson Henderson in WEC. He TKO'd Cowboy Cerrone. He's one of the toughest dudes out there with a leg kick to the body. Versus Dos Anjos, who is a southpaw as well. Pettis changed his stance to orthodox to open up more leg kicks, so that's a big part of his game. So he's not afraid to change stances. His wrestling and clinch game against Dos Anjos, he was taken down 9 times in their title fight. In his fight with Eddie Alvarez, Alvarez, who's typically known for his brawling style, he really altered his game plan against Pettis, and he tried to close the distance and pressure Pettis along the fence and in the clinch, and it really suffocated Pettis and made it difficult for him to use his rangy strikes that he uses to his advantage. Gilbert Melendez tried to do the same thing, but he was unsuccessful, and because Pettis caught him in a guillotine. But he was kind of limiting Pettis in his striking ability. Pettis is probably going to be at a disadvantage on the ground in almost all of his fights, but similar to the way that he throws wild strikes out of nowhere, he does the same with submission attempts. In his fights against Gilbert Melendez and Benson Henderson, he was on the ground, and he just threw up wild submissions for the win. Touching on this again, the key to beating Pettis is pretty simple. You want to pressure him on the fence. You want to wear him down. You want to make it a physically grueling fight and take away that space that he needs to throw those wicked kicks. If you look back at Clay Guida, Rafael Dos Anjos, and Eddie Alvarez, they all employed this method, and they walked away with decision victories. Moving on to Edson Barbosa. He's 16-4 in his pro MMA career. Most recently, he's coming off of a second-round fight of the night submission loss to Tony Ferguson, which was sweet. Tony Ferguson did, by the way, side note, Tony Ferguson does like this rolling leg lock thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Okay.
It's awesome, dude. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'm sure you have, but he does like this front flip, like barrel roll, and like grabs a leg, and it's pretty cool. It's really dangerous, but it's cool. Anyway, Barbosa has a black belt in Taekwondo and Muay Thai. He's a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu. He has really sharp boxing. He's a wild striker, very similar to Pettis. He's an orthodox fighter. Same as Pettis, he strikes from range. He uses wicked kicks. He likes to work over the body. He tends to do this this really aggressive spinning heel kick, and he throws it with power, and there's no telegraphing. I'm sure if you guys are UFC fans, like most of you are, you've seen him KO Terry Edom with this wicked spinning heel kick, hit him right in the dome, and put him to sleep. He has lightning fast switch kicks that are accurate and very, very powerful. He does a good job at handling pressure. Tony Ferguson was up in his face and pressured him the entire fight, and he didn't seem to be rattled by that in any way. He's a real technical fighter, and historically he's only been finished one time via strikes. His wrestling game, 2 of his losses have come via submission to Tony Ferguson and Donald Cowboy Cerrone. There's limited footage on his ground game. His fights, he has one game plan and one game plan only, and that's to move from a distance. He wants to create space and create opportunity, just like Pettis. Michael Johnson implemented the wrestling game plan. He worked over Barbosa on the cage, and Barbosa really offered limited resistance. Same story here with Barbosa as it is with Pettis. The key to beating him is to pressure him, keep his kicks at bay, pressure along the fence, keep mixing it up, take away that time and space he has to throw out those wicked kicks and striking. In terms of the pick, like Josh touched on, this fight is going to kick ass. I see these fighters as being pretty identical. If this thing even touches the ground, I'll be completely shocked. In fact, that might be a Stonewall Stunner. I don't know. Both guys throw wicked strikes, leg kicks, and they're going to make this a super fun fight to watch for anybody. They're rarely finished via strikes. I think they're just going to get out there, like you said, and burn the barn down and just throw punches and kicks and wicked leg kicks, and I can't wait for it. I wouldn't be shocked if there's a finish, but I think I'm going to lean Pettis in this one. I think he rebounds from his 2 losses. He's going to edge out a decision over Barbosa. What do you think?
No, man, I think I agree. I'm definitely – this might be the best fight on the card. The 2 – we'll get to the 2 main the main event and the co-main event here in a second, but this, I think, is the show stealer for sure. I can't wait to see how it turns out. I can't wait to see kind of what these guys do with each other. Like you said, their striking styles aren't exactly the same, but I mean they're probably about as similar as you can get between, like, for two guys in the lightweight division. Both just incredible kickers. I just hope that they don't like stand around and stare at each other. I think that would be like the worst possible outcome, is if they just kind of like look at each other and don't want to engage. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they both want that space to work. They should give it to each other, and they should bang it out. It should be awesome. In terms of DraftKings, looking at the pricing, with this fight being so as close as you're saying, Pettis is significantly more expensive. So do you think Barboza makes the better play here at only 8,800?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for salary relief, man, I think it's a close fight. Vegas has Barboza as plus 145 and Pettis at minus 175. And in terms of MMA, I kind of see that as a coin flip. I mean, it's close enough where I think
he's slightly favored. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I think slightly favored in Vegas is less than, what is it, $1,800 on DraftKings. I mean, I'm going to throw Barboza in some lineups, and I'm not going to feel too upset about it.
Yeah.
Like, how does Pettis respond? I mean, he's been out. He's lost 2 in a row. How does he respond? It could be a mental thing, but you never know. I mean, he's an elite fighter. We know that. His game is striking at a range, and Barboza's not a wrestler, so maybe he comes out and storms him. But I think Barboza's a similar type of fighter, and I can see Barboza stealing this.
Yeah, Barboza's durable. And so if this thing goes 3 rounds and they're both just like banging it out on the feet, you're getting some pretty good value, I think, for Barboza. And if he manages to steal it out, then there you go. I mean, he's given you definitely solid point total. So I think I might favor Barboza as the play. I think we want exposure to both sides. You've got high output chances here. If anyone finishes,
sorry,
but there are guys I think around his price, like you can pay up 400 more. I think you're going to get a lock for a win and a whole bunch of strikes for 5 rounds. So I think I might prefer Barboza for the play here, even though I agree with you. I sort of like Pettis to win a close fight.
All right, we're going to move on to the co-main event of the evening. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson versus Henry Cejudo for the strap, the flyweight title. Let's take a look at Vegas. About what I expected. Demetrius Johnson is a minus 425 favorite. Cejudo is plus 325. They have this favored to go over 4.5 rounds. DraftKings has Johnson at 11,000 and Cejudo at 8,400. I think we know how this fight's going to go. Johnson is going to be the active fighter, and he's going to outstrike Cejudo, in my opinion, and pick him apart on the feet. You can never really rely on Johnson for the finish, in my opinion. There's really not too much analysis that I want to put into this one. I just think Cejudo is outmatched, and Demetrius Johnson could be pound for pound the best fighter in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sort of the deal is here. DJ usually gets his finishes by submission. Yeah, the barring the one punch nuts, he's usually going to submit guys. Have like tight. Unquestioned, slowing down. So the last time time that Johnson was against Ali Bag. Like powerful, but Woody Johnson hundred, put him in your lineups. Feel good about it. You can get a late submission. He's gonna be racking up.
We back?
I am back, and we're still live. Awesome. Sorry about that. I guess I'll have
They
to
probably just saw me send a Snapchat.
Huh?
Never mind.
Sorry, man.
You're good, man.
And sorry to the listeners. I'll see if I can edit that up so it doesn't go up on the podcast. But yeah, my apartment building has terrible internet, apparently, which is awesome. Stuff like this. Anyway, let's get back into it, wrap this up. So, DJ cruises. He's the best pound for pound, probably in the world. Better than Jones, maybe. He's going to smack Cejudo, either cruise to his decision behind a ton of striking, and or get a late submission once he tires Cejudo out. You throw him in your lineups. He's 11,000 cash games, GPPs. He's good to go.
All
Anything
right.
else on that one?
No, man, you covered it. These two main events are pretty straightforward, in my opinion. All right, moving on to the main event of the evening. Ovince St. Preux versus Johnny Bones Jones. St. Preux comes in at plus 400. Johnny Bones is minus 600. Vegas thinks this fight ends under 2.5 rounds at minus 220. DraftKings has Jones at 11,400 and St. Preux at 8,000. I'll start with this one. Keep it short and sweet. My boy John, he's coming back. He's got something to prove. And he storms St. Preux. St. Preux is a talent, but he's not on Jones's level. He's going to be the main event of this card, taking on the GOAT. And I think Jones storms. I would not be shocked if Jones storms him in the first round. We all know what John Jones is. He's aggressive. He's wild strikes. He's huge. His wrestling is through the roof. St. Preux we don't know as much about, but I know one thing. Historically, he struggles with wrestlers. I'm going to have Jones in cash games, GPPs. I'm going to pay up for that 11,400 and find some value elsewhere. Bones is my guy, man.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm probably going to try to stay a little bit away from him. I think he's going to be like really, really highly owned, and I think DJ is safer. I think you can find other guys who are likely to finish early. I might throw in OSP as a contrarian tournament play. He's got that giant power. I think you're right. I mean, like, Jones has faced everyone. He's faced plenty of dudes who have giant power. And OSP's got a giant weakness to grappling, or being on bottom anyway. So yeah, I think I don't think that I'm going to be personally all on Jones that much as being super expensive. I think there's other guys who can get you early finishes and who are safe. Like, I like Whitaker and I like Johnson big time. So, but yeah, probably can't go wrong with Jones. He's probably going to smash and end this one quick.
All right, that wraps up our analysis for UFC 197. We've got a few things before we go. We're going to do our bonus picks. As always, there's a scoring system. We pick a fight of the night, a lock of the night, and the Stonewall Stunner of the night. If you get the lock wrong, you earn -1 point. If you get the fight of the night correct, you get +1. And if you get the Stonewall Stunner correct, you get +3. Currently, I am losing 1-2. Josh had a good card last weekend. So let's start with the fight of the night. I'm going to go first. This is easy for me. Barboza versus Pettit is going to be the fight of the night, guaranteed. You?
Yeah, not a bad pick. That's the only worry I would have, like, with that one. Like I said, is that they kind of stare at each other for extended periods. So you got that one. I'm going to go with Feely and Rodriguez. They're both just two crazy action fighters who throw caution to the wind all the time. So it's if Barboza and Pettis fail to deliver, I think that one is a good shot to get the fight of the night. Before we continue, shout out to me real quick for hitting my Stonewall Stunner last week. Not that it was that much of a stunner, but you agreed. My stunner was that Glover would finish Evans, and he did so in terrifying fashion. So I jumped up 3 points on that one to take the lead. Moving on.
Our next fight is the bathroom break fight of the night. This doesn't have any effect on the scoring, but we just do it for fun. This is the fight where if you went to the bathroom, you're probably going to have a better time in there than you do watching this fight. So I'll let you go first.
I don't know that I'm going to have a better time in the men's room at B-Dubs than would watching the fights. But so I guess my bathroom break is, it's kind of hard to pick on this one. There's some fights that have like finishing potential and definitely some excitement, but I feel bad, I guess, going at the ladies, but my bathroom break fight of the night this time is Esparza and Lima. I think Esparza is going to look to grapple and wrestle, and Lima's not a super high output striker, so I think that's going to be the most slow-paced fight of the evening. You got one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Walt Harris and Cody East. Everybody's all excited. What are they? Are they heavyweights?
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's all excited for the heavyweights. But these guys are pretty raw. They're not very polished. And I would not be shocked to see this fight be a total snooze fest. So I'm going to go with that one. All right.
Yeah, lower heavyweight fights can get ugly real quick.
Yeah, they get sloppy and tired and whatnot. All right, let's move on to the lock of the night. Which fighter is guaranteed to get their hand raised at the end of the fight? I think mine's pretty clear. I'm going with Johnny Bones Jones.
Picking the biggest favorite again. So brave.
That's why they call it a lock, dude.
Yeah, I'm going to go with my boy Mighty Mouse Johnson. No love. He should change his name to No Love. That dude can't get any love. Poor guy. He's gonna mop up Cejudo and finish cleaning out the division.
All right. Finally, last but not least, the Stonewall Stunner of the evening. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one first. I'm going to take my Stonewall Stunner of this card is going to be Escudero. Efrain Escudero beats Kevin Lee. He's well-rounded, doesn't have glaring holes in his game. Lee is coming off his first stoppage loss, so it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back. I'm sort of picking this as my stunner because I think the line is just too ridiculous. Lee is a minus 400 favorite, which I think is just totally insane. His last fight, he was a huge favorite and got knocked out. So he's clearly not, untouchable. And Escudero is a gritty veteran who's durable. So I'm going to take Escudero to stun the crowd.
All right. I'm going to go with, my earlier analysis, I said I like Danny Roberts on paper, but I'm going out on a limb here. I'm going to say Dominic Steele wins by knockout over Danny Roberts. If Steele gets his hands on Roberts, he's going to sleep. So that's going to be my Stonewall Stunner of the night. All right.
Good stuff.
Yeah, man.
You got any hot take for McGregor before we wrap this up, or should we?
Yeah, we got a little news to talk about. Obviously, the big thing in the news is Conor McGregor retiring. As soon as I saw it, I kind of smelled some BS. Turns out he doesn't want to do all the promotion and come over to the States because he lost last time. He said he over-promoted and, he wasn't prepared. He wants to prepare again for this fight, which I kind of understand. I see his point of view, and I also see the UFC's point of view. I don't know. I think of it from more of a business aspect. You're the number one cash cow for this company, and you are headlining the biggest card in the history of the UFC. You're expected to be at these things, and I don't know that. If I had to pick a side, I think I'm going to side with Dana White on this one. I think he has to be there. Like, you're the guy. You can't just not show up and promote these fights. And kudos to Dana. I mean, he did the same thing with Nick Diaz. When Diaz didn't show up for the GSP fight, he pulled him, and it's kind of cool to see him do that to his cash cow, which is Conor McGregor, who they obviously take care of and favor.
Okay. Hold up. First, just kudos to Conor McGregor. I'm sorry, kudos to Dana White. Kudos to Dana White. Are you crazy? This man. You're gonna side with the quote unquote the man in this one and not the fighter. Are you nuts?
Yeah.
You're nuts. Okay. All right.
I might be.
My first impression, obviously, I was with you. Like, how's he going to retire? I mean, he's said for a long time that he doesn't want to like stick around in this game too long, take a whole bunch of head trauma. He doesn't want to overstay his welcome in the sport, whatever. But yeah, I mean, he's about to headline the biggest card ever and make just trucks of cash. Even given despite how rich he is, I mean, it's going to be hard for him to turn that down. What I thought was really interesting was the day after he announced his quote-unquote retirement was like the Dana White interviews and how he was saying that their relationship was like totally fine, and if Conor called, they could like clear the air and everything would be cool, and he wasn't mad. Definitely not mad, bro. Not even mad, like not even a little bit. Like, are you kidding me? Like, those lies are so that lie anyway is super ridiculously, insanely transparent. Like, you just sound ridiculous. I mean, White has been known to lie and offer title shots and then pull them, or like be ridiculous in his promotion of fights, talking like this dude is the best fighter ever. This fight is the biggest thing that's ever happened in your entire life. Blah blah blah. Like, okay, those things are kind of like normal, but this was like super over the top. I'm not mad, bro. When clearly you're seething. But then it was even more interesting. Like, so he was trying to say that he pulled McGregor for not doing the promotion, which everyone, including myself, thought was like total BS. Like, you're trying to save face in the situation after McGregor calls his retirement, and but now after McGregor's like Facebook post, it sort of seems like that's actually what did happen, which is like super insane. That he wouldn't do a commercial and the UFC pulled him. Like, what is happening?
Just one commercial, please. They want him to go on these. It's the biggest fight in the history. They're going to do world tours, just like he did with Aldo. Like,
I side with him on this one. I mean, he's super vain and super like, I don't know. I guess vain, or just super prideful, and can't stand the fact that he lost. And it's just eating away at him. And he's a megalomaniac, crazy person. But at the end of the day, he makes a point. Like, he needs to train. He's got a big fight. I think he did make some good points, some humble points in I'm fighting a longer, taller, stronger dude, and I need to properly train for it and get my like cardio where it needs to be. And I can't do that if I'm like running around all over the world doing all this like stuff. I've been doing the stuff. Get someone else to do the stuff. And I mean, like, I get what you're saying, that like he's the dude. This is the biggest fight ever. He needs to be there for the promotion. But at this point, they've got enough like promotional stuff with his face on it. Just like cut it all up and put it all together. Just like, how many press conferences and commercials and faces has he already made at the camera? Money signs, making it rain. Just like mix all that crap up. Like, you don't need him to do a million different world tours. In my opinion, I mean, it's UFC 200. McGregor's fighting. It's going to sell itself. You don't need to have him running all over the world to do it. And
when you have $10 million already invested into the marketing plan, and you're just going to back out, you have all this stuff scheduled. Nah, that ain't me, dude.
I don't know. I mean,
let's just agree to disagree.
I think the 10 million thing is, I mean, I get it, but pulling him, doesn't make much sense to me either. But whatever. I don't know.
I mean, I understand.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm not totally convinced that he won't be on that card quite yet, but
yeah, they officially pulled him apparently now.
Yeah, I know, but
they could just as easily officially put him back on.
Yeah, exactly. All right, a little more news. Benson Henderson making his Bellator debut for the welterweight title. Are we interested in this?
I kind of am. I mean, Bellator has lately gone down the toilet, in my opinion. Everyone makes fun of Bjorn Rebney, and for some reason, I don't think that he was that bad of a promoter. I didn't hate the tournaments. I know a lot of people thought they were like lame, but at least it sort of gave you some incentive to care about like the rest of their main card past their main event. At this point, like, I don't care about any of it. Calling it the toughest tournament in sports and stuff is kind of ridiculous. But I don't know. I think Bellator is good for the sport, good for the fighters, that they've got this other, promotion that they can go to that can pay them, that kind of like forces the UFC to, in a position where they might need to like pay out a little bit more, which is, I think, is always good, because fighter pay is kind of a joke. But I think it's probably going on right about now, so I might go check it out. At welterweight against Koreshkov. Koreshkov's definitely very, very good. Do you care about Bellator at all, or are you just like you here for the Kimbo and then get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, Kimbo's my dude. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It's good for the sport, like you said, but I don't know. I can only watch King Mo so many times and Rampage and Tito. I don't know. It's just sure I'll watch the fight, but am I changing plans for it? Probably not. What channel is that on? Is that on tonight?
Yeah, Spike. Yeah, I'm all about DBR with Bellator. That's my jam.
All right. Anyway, we have one email. It's actually from a female. We have a email from Cheryl from York, Pennsylvania, and she asks, if Conor McGregor pulls out of this fight, who does the UFC bring in to replace him? I have one name in mind.
Okay.
He goes by three letters. GS.
You stumped me.
GSP.
Oh, GSP. Okay, I got you. Oh man, I'm not trying to see that fight. I'm not trying to see him ground Nate Diaz for 5 rounds. That would be terrible.
I'm not saying fight Diaz. Could they bring in Diaz or GSP for a super fight? Or are they going to put Robbie Lawler on the main event?
I don't know. I want to see GSP Lawler. That's the fight that I want to see. If they did that, I'd freak out. That fight would be awesome. So I hope that's what they do. If they can't keep McGregor on the card, it would be kind of crap. I mean, I'm a huge Nate Diaz fan. I would love to see him stay in the main event slot. I don't know who would be a great matchup for him that would be like just as action packed. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I want Diaz. I love Diaz. I want him to get that main event spot. I think he earns it. I know he's not going to fight GSP. He's always said that's my brother's fight. And those two are, super tight. So I don't think he would actually do that. GSP doesn't want to fight for the strap, though. He wants mega fights. And according to the media, he's hung up on this whole promotional deal with Reebok, and he wants to use sponsors and stuff. But it'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks here, months leading up to UFC 200. Can't wait for UFC 197 this weekend. That's all we got for you guys today. Make sure to send us your emails at dailyfantasyknockout@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, dailyfantasyko. Please subscribe to the podcast. Josh and I are working on a few things on the side to up the production value for you guys, so keep an eye out for that. And thanks for tuning in. For Stonewall Stillman, I'm Diener. Good luck this weekend in your fights, and let's make some money. Peace.
Peace.